On there, guys. Good afternoon. It is Earthmaster here on the live stream. Tuesday, August 31st, last day in August, obviously, 2021, about 11:53 a.m. So technically still good morning here in California. Latest quake on the globe, a 4.8 earthquake striking down in the South Sandwich Islands. Seeing quite a bit of earthquake activity ramp up there, as well as the West Coast. Let's go ahead and check out some specifics here. What's going on out here along the major plate boundary along the west coast of California. You can see here on this map. This map kind of gives you a little view of all sorts of activity ramping up along the San Andreas Fault system, all the way up here from the north, all the way down through central California, even into parts of southern California. Also some activity inland kicking up well into Nevada, where they had a 4.7 earthquake strike out there around Wells, Nevada. Felt pretty broadly throughout the area at about 8.7 kilometers, somewhat shallow. Earthquake was felt by quite a few folks out there. Looking at regional information does show some activity throughout history, at least back to about 1900 or so, in the vicinity of the Wells area. In fact, a little bit further, larger scale movement just to the north of this epicenter of where the 4.7 struck. Originally, this came in as a 4.5, upgraded to a 4.7, and possibly could get even upgraded further. I was looking at the signature of that earthquake that struck around Wells, Nevada earlier, and man, is it showing up pretty significantly on the Yellowstone seismograph stations here all throughout the park. So I wouldn't doubt it if we see a little bit further upgrade from that 4.7. You can see that strongly showing up on all the seismograph stations throughout Yellowstone National Park. I have not seen any indication of a swarm here in Yellowstone National Park yet. Sometimes these regional earthquakes can trigger a swarm, especially if they get around the 5 range and whatnot. But right now, looking pretty quiet there at Yellowstone National Park. We will definitely be keeping an eye on that area. But I think the big picture right now is the entire West Coast. We've been watching quite a bit of movement south here, south of the Cascadia, down throughout the major plate boundary, as known as the San Andreas Fault. The Pacific Northwest has been relatively quiet. This here is just the 2.5 map and above, so quite a bit of activity ramping up, definitely above the daily average numbers when it comes to any given earthquakes out here. So let's go ahead and check out the what's going on here at the southern end of the Cascadia. It's kind of just off the Mendocino Fault line, the San Andreas Fault area, kind of into portions of the Cascadia subduction zone. 3.6 and a 4.0. These are two deep earthquakes, 32 kilometers and 28 kilometers for this area. I believe this has to do with what we've been seeing over the past couple weeks or so. We've been looking at, this is just the last 7 days, all magnitudes. Let's see if we can get this to pop up here and we can see a little bit more. Here's some of the activity throughout the 30-day level that we were talking about. Just see a line of activity throughout this region and a cluster of activity. And most of this is deep earthquake activity into the subduction zone of the Cascadia. We also see a lot of deeper movement throughout California inland at some relatively deep levels as well. That indicative of the subduction going on underneath the North American plate with the Juan de Fuca plate. What creates subduction? Why does one plate slide underneath another in the subduction zone? Obviously, it's plate tectonics at work and pressure from the area over here to the west and the North American continent as well, kind of adding in a lot of pressure in that zone of the Cascadia. It's very active is the word I guess I'm kind of looking for today and over the past 30 days. As we look up here to the north into the Cascadia Basin area and the Blanco Fracture Zone, we've seen a little bit of heightened earthquake activity throughout that region. And definitely on the tremor map, we've seen some movement mostly confined to Northern California, Southern Oregon area. So I would be watching this region southward here very closely. Another indicator of some further pressure specifically in this region. Not only is that 4.7 over there in Wells, Nevada, a good indicator of increased pressure, we're also seeing movement down along the creeping section of the San Andreas Fault. And normally we see just some 2s and 3s, but today, a short time ago, a 4.1 striking along the creeping section of the San Andreas Fault. Looks like near Pinnacles. Soledad sits over here to the southwest. That thing right smack dab at the level we would see when it comes to earthquake activity along the San Andreas Fault in that region. And as we make our way down south as well, seeing quite a bit of earthquake activity ramping up along the San Jacinto Fault areas to the south of the Salton Sea around Mexicali. This is the Imperial Fault system that sits here, the Brawley seismic extension that runs up into the San Andreas Fault area. So definitely some heightened earthquake movement taking place, and you can see a line of activity throughout the south here too. We did see movement around the Tehachapi area. Let me see when that was. It may have been further back than 7 days. But we're looking at kind of a line of activity along these mountain ranges here, north of the Garlock Fault structure. That's going to be this section right here. So a lot of pressure from the north and the west, kind of building up to the north here along this fault line, north of it. We haven't really seen too much here in this specific fault area, but a good indication of pressure here with this linear line type activity of earthquakes in this region. Actually, if you look over here, it extends all the way over towards Las Vegas. Looks like a little earthquake north of Las Vegas right now, 1.7 kicking up within the last about half hour ago. So regional view, definitely some movement up here in the Pacific Northwest as well, but I think the heightened chance of seeing something greater than what we're seeing right now is confined up here, or down here I should say, along the west coast, California inland. It's just pretty active, really active, folks, over the last 24 hours. Let's go ahead and check out some of this microquake activity up here in the Pacific Northwest, watching the volcanoes along the Cascade for continued microquake activity, especially right around Mount Rainier, and a little bit of activity up to the north as well. Still seeing some movement around the Mount Baker area. We have been watching a little bit of activity in the swarming department just to the southwest of Mount Baker by about under about 10 miles or so. We've seen this cluster of quakes kind of ramping up in that area. Also the deeper movement throughout the Seattle area, indicator of subduction underneath the North American plate here, with the Juan de Fuca plate creating that activity. But just today, a little bit of further movement around the Seattle fault system. There's that deeper earthquake activity, 20 kilometers around the Seattle area. Also seeing some deeper movement up here to the north of, not for sure what this is. What is that? Ruby Beach, northeast of there. Some more deep movement, indicator of the subduction activity taking place underneath the North American plate. 28 kilometers for that pair of earthquakes right there. Nothing big, but still we're getting that deep movement indicated on those maps there. Idaho seeing a little bit of activity north of the Sawtooth Fault area. Still kind of watching this region. It's been pretty active over the last year. And this Sawtooth Fault system capable of producing an upper 6 in this area. There's the Cascadia quakes. Let's go ahead and check out the inland area. Of course, we've seen this earthquake west of Williams yesterday along the Great Valley Fault area. And that one fairly deep as well, 16 kilometers. A little bit of movement up here around Grass Valley area, 2.0 at 9 kilometers up there, right around the foothills, Sierra Nevada area. Bay Area fairly quiet, except for southward along the creeping section. A little bit of movement along the which fault system is that? San Andreas Fault zone. Some microquakes, including a 2.3 near Milpitas, just within the last hour. 4.2 kilometers, pretty shallow. So working our way up here, still seeing a swarm of activity in Utah, right up against the edge of these hills. Right, we're kind of looking at a lot of activity right up against the crest of the hills, right up against the crest of mountain ranges. That's obviously pressure taking place there in that region, in those regions, I should say, pretty significantly. There's a swarming up here. We're looking at a new swarm of activity right against this crest area here near Cedar. Actually, they got this set at Sunnyside, Utah. Some pretty shallow earthquake activity taking place here in the negative range. Not for sure how much of this has been reviewed, but I'm guessing it is surface type activity. Let's see here, it has been reviewed. They're keeping the depth pretty shallow on all of these quakes. As I mentioned, Yellowstone National Park pretty quiet. Colorado looking pretty quiet as well. New Mexico, Pecos, Texas. I wouldn't doubt it if we start seeing a little heightened earthquake activity here real soon with all the pressure out here along the west coast. Could potentially be adding to the stress in this region, but we will see if that takes place or not. Oklahoma, a little bit of movement and some activity skipping the New Madrid area over along the Appalachian Mountains near Knoxville. Tennessee, a little 2.4 at 18 kilometers. Pretty deep movement out there in the east. Puerto Rico, some activity ramping up around the Puerto Rico Trench area. 18 kilometers for that 3.8. And your typical swarm of activity on the southwest area of Puerto Rico. The South America region still seeing some activity. Nothing significant, just quite a few forests kicking up from Peru southward into Chile along the Peru-Chile Trench area. And of course the South Sandwich Islands area still getting in on some earthquake activity with the latest as of 4.8, 32 kilometers. Areas here to the southwest, the Pacific Ring of Fire, looking at some deeper movement, including that 6.3. It wasn't really all that deep. Pretty shallow, 16 kilometers for that 6.3 last night. But of course up here around the Tonga region, seeing some deep activity, including one over 600 kilometers and some further activity to the west there. Japan remains relatively quiet up here from the Ben, the Aleutian Islands southward, pretty quiet. And we did see a little bit of movement work its way. Of course, we had that little earthquake yesterday in Tanzania, right? I've been corrected quite a few times on that, let me tell you. I called it Tanzania. I don't really know too much about this area. Yes, I was paying attention in geology and stuff like that, obviously, but yeah. Tanzania, got it. That was yesterday for that 4.8. Some movement up here around Turkey as well. That's a pretty recent earthquake, that 5.1. And some older earthquake activity as we work our way to the west. So just, I think we need to be on guard here along the west coast with all this heightened earthquake movement, folks. Looking pretty crazy over the last couple hours, including, like I say, inland. We could be watching for some potential further movement inland as well. It's obviously showing up today. So be on guard, but west coast, be on guard more specifically. The tremor last night was kind of iffy. We had some movement up here to the north near Seattle. It's kind of explaining why we're seeing some deeper earthquake activity up there, and I'm guessing that's going to be filled in a little bit more today as this map gets updated around 6:30 my time. And I'm sure we'll see this really increase here in the Northern California, southern end of the Cascadia. Like I said, once that map comes out about 6:30 later this evening. So, all right, folks, I'm gonna jump off here. Just be on guard. Let me tell you guys, it's getting kind of weird. Just having an eerie feeling in my stomach recently. More so today. I was up pretty early, just wide awake, about 2:30 in the morning, just kind of with an odd feeling. And that odd feeling is lingering into my day today, so not for sure what's going on. I don't think I'm getting sick, It's just a kind of a weird feeling I'm getting. All right, guys, have a good day. Stay safe out there, and we will chat you guys a little bit later tonight with an update video. Till then, be prepared and stay safe. Peace.